Good morning, everybody. It's Sam from Manifest. I'm joined today by Haider, founder and operator par excellence of Arrae. Sif, thank you so much for joining me. Sif has actually an incredible background in content production and podcasting. So we've agreed that she's going to give me notes after this in case there's anything I can do to like tighten the act. But you know, as listeners have heard, and I'll tell it one more time for the newbies, this podcast started a few months ago because I broke my leg and had nowhere to go, and I thought it'd be really fun to talk to people. And it has turned. I'm ambulatory now, happily. It has turned into a place where we get to talk shop with fellow entrepreneurs about all things omni-channel, all things startup growth, and really just kind of get to know the backstory and the growth lift that founders like Sif have undertaken and have, of course, as you know, as we're in this context, are turning around and helping other people do. So thank you, Sif, for joining me. And my first question, I'm just going to lob it over, is like, hi, how are you? And tell us your story.
Thank you for having me, Sam. And I don't think you'll need any notes. I feel like you are a natural. Like I can feel your energy. So I feel like it'll be a great conversation. So to introduce myself to your listeners who may not know my background, again, I am the co-founder of Arrae. I started it with my husband. And why did I start it, or my story? So essentially, it goes back to my early 20s. I was on this constant hamster wheel of getting sick, taking antibiotics, getting better, doing it all over again. And I ultimately ended up fracturing a rib from a chronic cough when I was like 22 or 23. I was like really young. And like, I was like, this stuff happens to your like 89-year-old grandma. Like, I don't know why it's happening to me.
I love her.
And when I went to my doctor, I was essentially just prescribed codeine. There was no path forward. There was no plan. And I just felt really frustrated and let down. And at that moment, I was like, okay, I can keep doing what I've been doing up until this point, but obviously it's not working because I'm sitting here with a fractured rib and having to drink codeine like I'm Lil Wayne. And that's just not the vibe. So
Sure, it's not the vibe.
It really was not for me personally. Like it was, I mean, if that's your vibe, then that's great.
No, I meant Lil Wayne.
No, not you, but like, whoever's listening, you know? But so I was like, okay, let me look into what the holistic world has to offer. And this is like 7-8 years ago. It just wasn't like a cool industry. It was very like crunchy granola. Like the information wasn't just out there, like on TikTok. It didn't, it was just like it was harder to navigate. And so I started reading anything I could get my hands on, whether it was books or scientific literature, and started guinea pigging on myself and started to see huge shifts in my own immune system. And then from there, I was like, okay, I wonder if I can use herbs, minerals, vitamins to like target other issues that I may be suffering from, whether that's like digestive discomfort or fatigue or anxiety or whatever it was, like these day-to-day issues that have been so normalized for us. And at that point, my husband Nish and I noticed this big white space in the wellness world whereby, I was a creator, and as a hyper consumer, I couldn't understand why the skincare industry was so like served, like they really served consumers, whereby we can go into Sephora, find what we need for our dark circles, hyperpigmentation, acne, whatever your skin concern is. It's so easy to navigate. It's formulated by a derm or a chemist. It's results oriented, and it's also really beautiful. So you're excited to incorporate it into your routine. And that just was not the case for supplements. So that was really our goal with Arrae. We wanted to create 100% natural targeted supplements that worked in under an hour. And also we wanted to make it really beautiful and chic so that people would be excited to use it versus like stuff it to the back of their pantry and forget about it.
Well, and it is so beautiful. I have to as a like products obsessed person, which I don't know what that says about my character, but I'm just going to lay it out there. your brand and what you're offering and how you're communicating around it is so elevated and so beautiful and so inspirational. So high five. And as
Thank
a
you.
fan
That's
and a
very
customer,
kind.
it is, you're right. It is really a step change from the way that we're used to interacting with those types of products, and so needed, because how we interact with things is, I mean, it's a relationship. We have relationships with the stuff around us. So kudos for having recognized that opportunity and also like shared it with the world. It's an incredible undertaking.
Thank you.
Speaking of which, productizing nutraceuticals is probably not simple. Tell us a little bit about your product development approach, and yeah, how you threaded that needle. It sounds like my backstory and your backstory share a lot of similarities, not only in that we work with our husbands, but also having entered a space, really reacting to just a problem that we saw and like something that we were excited about solving for, and then running up the learning curve for that thing. My challenge was in making food safe products because I had a kitchenwares brand, and it was like, okay, I got a lot. There's like a stack of FDA regulations for me to understand, and the list of that has only grown. I can imagine that jumping into the nutraceutical space is like a step change, even more challenging
Totally.
than that.
So we are a Canadian company, or that's where we were born. Right now, we are LA based and like our headquarters are here, but we like Nish and I are Canadian. And so we started the company in Canada. Now, the thing is that with nutraceuticals, Canada is one of the most difficult countries to start a nutraceutical company because the regulations are very stringent. And so in order to sell your product, you need something called a natural product number, otherwise known as an NPN. And in order to attain that NPN, you have to ensure that Health Canada kind of signs off on any claims that you're making, the ingredients you're using, the percentage of ingredients. So it's like a very regulated process whereby nutraceuticals are not actually regulated in the US. So if consumers want to make sure that they're purchasing from a high quality brand, always make sure that they have an NPN. That's really, really important.
Yeah.
So that was, I guess, like from like a technicality standpoint, like how we navigated it. And of course, like we worked and we work, not worked, we work with doctors and like expert formulators to come up with our products. I have a deep interest in like this world, but at the same time, I recognize that I can't be out here being the one who like formulates it myself. We wanted to make sure that our consumers felt really taken care of by knowing that they had doctors and expert formulators really working on the products for them.
Yeah. And does that give you an advantage in a way in entering the US market, and that you've kind of overcome this regulatory hurdle in a more restrictive country, and now you're bringing a product into the US, or exposing it to the US marketplace? The labeling requirements are perhaps less stringent, but do you maintain that stringency, and does that help you build consumer trust?
Of course. I mean, the stringency is like, it kind of goes across the board. Labeling requirements are different based on which country you're going into, but in terms of like whether that made it easier or not, yes, of course, because when you're facing the hardest hurdles, like right when you're starting, everything else becomes kind of easy. And
Totally.
like it's like, okay, this is nothing compared to what I went through, and that was back when it was just Nish and I and like maybe one other person on our team. Like that's when we were handling like the bulk of the issues just to get it off the ground. So being in the US, it's not that hard because Canada was probably the hardest place to start a company like ours.
Also good for Canada for having very protective consumer safety.
Absolutely.
Take care of its
Yes.
people. Like, something to note. And I think something to aspire to, for anyone bringing a product into the world in this space or in another space, that your responsibility to your customer goes sometimes beyond what regulations require.
Of course.
You know, they're all over the map. And I was often faced with choices where it was like, okay, I don't have to say this or do this, but like, I really ought to. This is the right.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's stuff like that that builds like longevity and credibility within a brand. And for us, like our goal was not like, let me make a quick buck, you know, like that was really like our goal has always to build, has always been to build a company with longevity, with credibility, something that people really trust and that really changes people's lives, you know? So we hold ourselves internally to a very high standard as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and good note, like starting a company is not the way to make a quick buck.
No. Oh
If
my
you're
God.
looking for a quick buck, don't do this. It's like the most challenging, risky, failure-filled. Like, have you had any failures? I've had failures. I can talk, I've had mega failures, but what's been this is a total tangent, but what has been like the hardest moment for you as the founder leader of this brand? Like, was there a regulatory wall that you hit? Was there a consumer understanding wall that you hit? Was there a packaging wall that you hit? What was the like, where'd you stumble and how'd you dust yourself off?
I think that there's so many instances of mini failures and hurdles that I think as a founder, I remain pretty stoic about it. And I don't like, it's almost like once that happens, I move on. So just to give your audience kind of like small, it feels small now, back then felt like my world was going to crumble. A really interesting one was actually when we started the business. It was COVID, like March 2020, and we were doing everything out of our condo, like, you know, like the one that Nish and I lived in, and the whole place had essentially turned into a warehouse. And you know, we were packaging there, like, you know, sending out orders from there, so the UPS mailman would come to the lobby. I was friends with my concierge, thank God, and he would take all of these boxes away for our customers. And the business started scaling like pretty rapidly. And around November, which is Black Friday and Christmas, and this is like this is the busiest time for any brand owner. Okay.
The whole wide world. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. And we received a cease and desist from our condo being like, you actually are not allowed to be shipping products from here. This is considered commercial activity and you have 48 hours to sort it out. And Nish and I were like, what do we do? Like, what are we supposed to do? We can't just like not, you know? And we looked into what our options were. We were like, do we just keep going here? And the fact of the matter was that if they sued us, we'd have to cover their lawyer costs. It was insane. Like, it was so stressful. And it was really stressful. And so we just had to be really quick to figure out a solution. We ended up moving our operations to my brother's condo, he was like in the next building. And then we devised a plan whereby we were friends with our UPS guy at that point. So then he'd meet us at the parking lot so that no one would see us doing things in the lobby so that we wouldn't get banned from his building. So yeah, we would go into the parking lot. Our UPS guy would meet us there and we would be like hauling, like, I cannot even explain to you, like bags, like giant bags, because he couldn't come up anymore because then they'd see him coming down from our floor with all of these boxes. And so we were like, we can't risk this anymore. So that's like a good example of a hurdle, which at that point we were like, what do we even do? Like, if we have to stop packaging things, like people aren't going to get their things on time. It can crush the business because, as you know, I think so much of the success of a business is like dependent on their operational excellence, and getting things to people later is that is not it.
Yeah. Yeah. This is, so I jokingly call this the best day ever problem. Not jokingly. I think it's, I'm proud of this name. the best day ever is like Black Friday, right? It's, everybody wants your stuff, and demand is going through the roof. There's all sorts of best days ever, and subsequent drivers. Sometimes it's you're featured on TV. In the 90s, they called this the Oprah effect. I'm old enough to remember, like folding laundry and helping my mom like, while watching Oprah. But you know, you might be featured on TV. You might be having just a great sales week. You might have had some great kind of organic content that gives the brand or sales a lift. And like the next day, and what you're describing is the worst day ever, because you're a victim of your own success. You figure out like how to like smuggle bags of product through, you know, the freight elevator to the UPS guy. So best day ever. How I want to ask a question about supply chain, but first, since we're on this topic, tell me what the state of your distribution capabilities is today. I assume you're not doing it from your brother's apartment anymore.
Thank God, no.
Like, what does
No,
it look
now
like when you
obviously,
survive that?
obviously, you know, shortly after that, like I would say like like maybe 4 or 5 months from there, we ended up moving into a warehouse, and then they started doing our packaging and sending things through. Like by that point, like we were way overdue as it was. It's just that we as founders were so overwhelmed that we didn't have the time to even figure out which warehouse we wanted to go with, you know? So it was like one of those choose which fire you want to let burn and put out the other, you know what I mean? So yeah, like now it's the same thing, whereby we have not just one warehouse where we ship products out from, but like multiple, because we need that. And
Yeah.
it's no longer, thank God, from anyone's home.
The iron. So we own a 3PL with just a couple locations.
Smart.
It's not like the biggest thing in the world. But our point of view is we're trying to help brands become omni-channel. So we've really kind of specialized in everything, I guess. And the irony is, as like, because I own these warehouses, and like the whole reason I did it was so that I wouldn't have to ship another box ever again from my apartment. I had spatulas literally, like I'd open a closet door and spatulas would rain onto me. And Brian, my husband, was like, Sam, this has to stop. And then we had our kids. We were lucky enough to have a 2-bedroom apartment in New York, and one of the bedrooms was just like spatulas from wall to ceiling.
I mean, I believe it.
And so yeah, same vibes.
It's smart that
Yeah.
you owned the 3PL though, or you bought a 3PL, because I think that if you own that, you kind of control operations A to Z. Because for other founders, like we have a great 3PL, thank God. Like I want to knock on wood, but there will be an echo, so I will do it softly. But you know, like not every founder is so lucky. And fact of the matter is, like, you know, a lot of founders talk about how their 3PL is a nightmare, and that, you know, things get lost. And we've had experiences like that in the past, where like, you know, we outgrew our old 3PL and things were just going, you know, through the cracks. And so it's smart that you decided to buy your own 3PL like system.
Yeah, it started small. We had a 2,500 foot location. Well, we worked with 3PLs before we became a 3PL, and they were so overwhelmed by our inventory, by our need for accuracy in inventory, which shouldn't be an
Best day ever problems.
Yeah, we're like, we just want to know how much we have, and they're like, well, we really can't tell.
Yeah, I hear you.
And yeah, well, best day ever problem. A big retailer, I forget which one it was, that was sort of like the straw that broke the back, but we had like a major retailer place an order, which we should have been able to fill based on the on-hand stock that we had. And so we accepted the PO, and they went to pull it, and it wasn't there. And we're like, oh, okay, well, that is like a broken relationship or damaged relationship, lost revenue, panic PO at the worst time of year to get a replenishment. And, you know, all of these dominoes kind of fell, and that was I guess that was one of many straws that broke the back. But we thought, you know, like my lunch money is on the shelves here. Like I can't eat unless I sell a spatula. So every penny I ever saved, made from a different job, you know, every dollar I had in the world, I basically transformed into silicone and stuck on a shelf. And I thought that is like a real risk, because what the spatula has to do is go turn back into dollars, but like a couple more dollars when I sell it. And so we brought that was kind of one of those moments where we thought, this is so much risk to have somebody else be responsible for, whether or not they have good intentions. And and most 3PLs do, but most 3PLs also come from a perspective of being warehouse operators and not brand operators.
Absolutely.
So there's a misalignment, not always, but it's a thing. So we got a little 2,500 square foot like office with a big warehouse that was the warehouse in the back, little office in the front. And we just thought, like, let's protect ourselves, let's save ourselves. And we shipped our next pallets there. And my cousin opened the door and like counted it and sent me pictures, because it wasn't like right next to where I lived. And it grew from there. And it grew from there to like, we went to another place, we outgrew it we outgrew it 3 times in 1 year. That's how fast the brand was growing. So, and then sort of answered the call when other people said, "Hey, who's warehousing for you?" I'm like, well, we're doing it ourselves. And they're like, "Do you have any extra space?" Like, because we know you, Sam, are going to be good at counting stuff. I'm like, well, yes, you're right. I will count accurately. So that was the beginning of it all. And then when Gear was acquired, we thought, well, let's just keep this and keep helping the people that we are helping, including Gear, which felt really wonderful because I get to walk through the building and like, see the baby still there. And yeah, anyway, so back to you, but that's how we became
smart. No, it's super, super smart. And I think like people will appreciate hearing that story, because that's the right way to do it. And those are very real problems for brands who are partnering with 3PL companies, because you're right, like they are warehouse operators and not necessarily like thinking from a brand perspective.
Yeah, that's the scariest part. So hopefully we're doing a good thing in the world. Which leads me to, this has been one of the ways that we have built our community, and then subsequently like our customer base, is by telling stories like this with friends in the industry, and just trying to kind of like figure out ways that we can help. But we're a B2B business now, not a consumer goods brand anymore. So community building has a very different flavor for each of those types of things. But tell me about Arrae's community building and engagement. I know it is an extraordinarily engaged group of folks that are fans of your brand. I'm happy to count myself as one of them. Tell us how you started. What was so, we're saying, you and I are saying community building is a good thing, right? It's nice to have people engaged in your brand. What is the first step that you took or would recommend taking if someone listening is like, okay, good. Now what? Noted. Now what?
So I think that community is the number one kind of marketing thing that every brand should be doing. Like, forget everything else, focus on just community. And I think the way that brands do that, or should be doing that, is essentially to humanize your brand. Treat your brand as though it is a living, breathing entity. And the brands that I personally really like to follow and engage with are those that operate their social media and like all of their marketing efforts as though they were a real person. So that's what we do with Arrae. We try to show, and we always have, like all the BTS. At the very beginning, when it was just Nish and I, we showed that, we would show us packaging up the products. And then beyond that as well, we loved to connect IRL with our consumers. So back when, the company was smaller, we would go on Nish's motorcycle to hand deliver product to customers living in Toronto, so by doing things like that, we were able to speak to our consumers and really connect with them. And it's crazy because, again, going off the community thing, something that we do is we have dinners and events specifically for our customers. And we did that. We started doing that, I think it was beginning of last year. And every now and then, like if like whether it's like in our bigger cities like LA, Toronto, New York, we'll have like a consumer facing event. And it's crazy because last year, anytime I went to any of these things and I'd be meeting our consumers, they were like, oh, I remember when Nish was delivering product to me on his motorcycle, or I remember getting this sticker sheet. And I'm like, you must be like month 1 or month 2 customers and you're still here. Like we were just in Toronto and we did an event for, again, like a consumer one, and so many people showed up and they were like, oh yeah, I've been using the brand like since like 2020 May. Like, oh my God, like why did you get rid of like that thing that you used to put into the package like back then? And I was like, this is crazy, like it is insane that you're still here 3.5 years later. And so I think the connection happens because we built publicly, we always fostered a connection with our consumers, like whether it was through handwritten notes, Polaroids, meeting them in person, spending time to hang out with them. Like, for the longest time, all customer support calls would come to Nish's phone, and him and I, we would be talking to our customers being like, no, we're the founders. Like, how can we help? And it wasn't about like, how can I sell you my product, or like my product's the best product. Like so many times people would call and they'd tell me their concern and I'd be like, okay, like maybe you should be using this product instead. Or like, no, like our product won't help you because you need like medical support or whatever it was, So I think it comes from a brand's desire to genuinely connect with their consumers on a human to human basis, and really treating their consumers like influencers. I think that somewhere along the way with influencer marketing, brands forgot what was really integral to the success of their company, and they started to put influencers before their consumers, and you can never do that ever. So yeah.
I want to hear more about that. That is an incredible insight, and I think probably a bit of a disruptive insight into but what we should hear is like, that's what's working to empower and power your really quickly growing brand. And I think there's so much advice that gets dispensed around in the growth space that's like, well, here's the ABCs of what you need to do, and industry builds around that to support it. Like influencer marketing, which started from nothing, has now become a huge industry with like capabilities and tools that support it. And then you hear, you should do influencer marketing, and here's a $3,000 a month tool that will enable you to connect with this special group of people. And you miss, I think, in that some of the directness of the potential relationships, not just with those influencers, but you're right, with the actual community. And for brands that are just getting started and looking to pattern match themselves to what has been successful before, I think that it's easy to get stuck in just like, well, I have to do this and I have to do that. And not just get stuck, but also invest sometimes too early a lot of money in strategies that are maybe not right for that particular brand or product, just because like that's what everyone else is doing and that's what seems right. I'll give an example to make the point. We felt at one point like a loyalty program was really important for us, and we had a really engaged, I don't think I did nearly the job that you're doing, but we had a similarly engaged kind of group of core customers, and it was really, we weren't a CPG brand, we were just a durable goods brand. In fact, our stuff came with a lifetime guarantee, so getting a repeat buy was like a magical thing. But we had so many of those really loyal customers because our product was very giftable, and we were always coming out with new stuff, and we were engaging. And I thought, okay, like I've got loyal customers, maybe I should like reward them in some way and put like a loyalty program in place. So I spent like a lot of money. It was like an $8,000 a year program plus some monthly. So that was like the implementation plus some monthly thing. And I put it in place. And then it was like, I really regretted it because I thought, that sort of, it productized something that the brand wasn't quite ready to productize. It productized loyalty in a way that wasn't totally authentic for us. And also just like we didn't have the type of product that could get a return on it, because for loyalty programs to work, especially productized loyalty programs, there really has to be high monthly recurring purchases, or the potential for it, which your brand delightfully has, and mine, tragically did not. So, I'm doing all this and I'm like, I heard that was like the right thing to do. And then I pulled back and I was like, oh, like it was so not the right thing to do for our brand. What is right to do for a brand has everything to do with the product itself and the community that has organically built around it. And I think if you don't take the time, as you have, to create those personal connections so that you can learn from your customer what is driving their loyalty, then like whatever plan, you plop on top of it is just going to be plopped and not like embedded. So tell us a little bit more about the tools that you use for engagement. Like give us a couple of specific examples. You mentioned stickers, you mentioned events. Are there any other things that that you would recommend for folks to look at as ways to test and see what types of involvement and engagement are the most sticky for their product and their community?
I think it can be free. Honestly, like stickers, events, like these are things that we put money behind, but just to give everyone kind of like a transparent look into how we do things. When you look at our marketing budget, everything, it's all 360. Okay. We don't do anything that is not 360. That means that our influencer budget is the same as our community budget. So whatever we put into paid partnerships, and we only do a few, like handful, and they're usually year round with the same people who have already been brand fans.
Yeah.
We pour that same amount into community efforts. But the thing is with community, what's really beautiful about it is that it doesn't always have to be something that you are paying money for. So it can be free things, like it can be a workshop with the founders, it can be a Zoom call, it can be like a walk. There's so many things that brands can do for free to connect with their consumers. It doesn't necessarily have to be something that they're putting money into, especially at the beginning. Like, as I said, when we had started the brand, it's not like we had budget, like we were fully bootstrapped. We had to be scrappy. And so at the beginning, it was doing things like making sure that we were going on to hand deliver product if it was like convenient and something that we could do. And like that was the thing that would like speed up someone getting their product. It was things like, for us, we would send a Polaroid with every order because Nish and I love Polaroids. Our fridge was full of Polaroids. And so we started to do that, and people loved to see who was behind the brand. And before that, it was like a handwritten note, it was always things that would make consumers feel like we gave them a lot of importance, because if you think about it, typical like PR packages that go out to influencers, there's usually like all of these elements. There is like a handwritten note, like there's like a special element, whether it's like beautiful packaging or whatever it is, like a little add-on. And so that's kind of what we always try to do for our consumers as well. So I like, even your social media can be a really good way for you to connect with your customers. It can be, again, like showing behind the scenes, polls, like making sure you personally are the one who is handling your DMs versus like handing it over to an agency. The more connected a customer feels with you, I think the better. And that's kind of the essence of building community.
Well said. Tell us a little bit about where your community is going next. What are you building?
So what do we have going on? So we actually launched our loyalty program in May, and for us, like, you're absolutely right in what you're saying, Sam. Like, I think it has, like, a loyalty program has to be done for a business that needs a loyalty program. So for us, we're a high subscription business. People spend a ton of money on our products throughout their lifetime as a customer because this is something that they need in their day-to-day lives. And so we wanted to come up with an intentional loyalty program because that's what people kept saying to us, that like, oh, like we stay on for life, but can I come to more events? Can I have this? Can I have that? And so we're like, okay, we can come up with like a loyalty program, which is a tiered system, which is actually like, we like to think it's the Rolls Royce of loyalty programs. Like there's things in there that like I have never seen a brand do. Like this is like really like serious, like really cool stuff.
Wait,
like whether
tell us a couple.
Okay, so it can be merch, it can be access to PR boxes, it's special events, it's limited edition packaging. Like there's every element that we could think of creatively, we've put into that. Like it's you know, gifts, but the gifts are like, you know, products, like they're like full-size products that people get with their order. So it's all kinds of things that like allow people to feel like they really are appreciated by us. And that's kind of our goal. So that's something that's happened with community, which I think has been incredibly successful. What else we do, like is it bi-weekly or basically every 2 weeks we do
Bi-weekly,
bi-weekly walks with our community. And so that's led by our head of social media, and essentially like our whole team shows up because like our team in LA is like very, very close knit, and we also love connecting like just as a whole team to our customers. And so the last one we had, like basically our whole team was there, along with like obviously like the consumers who came out for it. So stuff like that, you know, I think like just constantly making sure that we are connecting. That's like always like what we're thinking of, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good point. Like the community exists to create connection, and the connection comes from, you know, that genuine engagement and like authenticity, that it's you guys, it's you thinking of this stuff. It's not, you know, it's not some like wizard behind the curtain. You might be, I'm sure you're a wizard, and maybe you're sometimes standing.
I'm not.
But yeah, like knowing that it's you is so valuable to people, and so important. And I think speaks to what an undertaking it is to be a founder in that way. Like you are really giving of yourself for this brand. You know, you're putting the brand on your shoulders and bringing it out there. And like, you know, of course there's some self-interest in it, right? You want to build a business and you want to pay the rent. But I think that it goes so much farther than that. Like there's better ways to pay rent. There's less scary ways to pay the rent. You know, it's not for the faint of heart. And it is, I think, a journey for the extraordinarily generous. The founder journey is a journey of generosity. And I think that particularly comes through from you as a founder. So it's jumping off the page and jumping off the screen.
You're so kind. Thank you. Yeah. I mean, I think that successful founders that at least I know, and I'm sure you feel the same way, Sam, I think the common thread is our desire to do something that makes a change in people's lives. You know, like we want, like, I think we're just problem solvers, and that's like the essence of it. That like, for me, like I'm just keen to solve any problem that I see. And like, it's funny because I was speaking to my brother about this over like the weekend, and he's like,
UPS brother.
Yeah, UPS brother, exactly. So we were hanging out, and he's like, well, like, how did you even like how do you even know what business ideas to come up with? I'm like, no, it's not a business idea. I'm like thinking everything that I see an issue within the world, I'm like, but why hasn't anyone solved this? Like, oh my God, wouldn't it be so cool if like this existed to solve this? And like, I think entrepreneurs are just problem solvers. Like we just want to make people's lives better.
It's so true. It starts with one, like, you know, you wanted better supplements. I wanted a better spatula.
There we go.
But then, you know, you get to share it, and that's really what makes it worth doing. I want to hear about all your problem solving ideas, not on this call, but like I want to help you build stuff. So
You're so sweet.
let's stay friends. Like
Absolutely.
those things that go bump in the night in your head. Yeah, I have those things too.
Yeah, there we go.
Let's do it. Thank you so, so much for spending your morning with me. It's been such a pleasure to get to know you. And I hope that everybody has a chance to go check out Arrae's amazing line of products. Not only are they a beautiful, beautiful objects and packaging to have in your home, but also I think, Sif, you're doing a great thing in the world in trying to, help people solve their health problems in a really kind of thoughtful and natural way.
Thank you so much. It's been such a fun conversation, and likewise, like it's always so great to connect with other founders and creatives who want to make a difference in the world. So this has been super, super enjoyable. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Cool. We'll do it again.